Hello everybody and welcome to today's video on the topic of court packing. Before we get started, I would like to ask you that if you like the content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on when we release new videos regarding topics of politics and which focuses on an independent view and will call out hypocrisy by both major parties. So today's video is on what is court packing. Court packing is the addition of justices added to the Supreme Court of the United States. Currently on the Supreme Court, there are 9 justices on the bench. How is a Supreme Court justice selected? A Supreme Court justice is appointed by the President of the United States, and the power to do this is achieved through the Constitution. After somebody is nominated for the Supreme Court, they have to go through a confirmation hearing through the Senate. This confirmation hearing is conducted within the Senate Judiciary Committee, and at the end of the hearing, there is a vote. To get to the Senate floor, you must achieve a vote in the Senate of the majority. Once on the Senate floor, a vote is decided, and you have to achieve at least 51 votes to be appointed to the Supreme Court. When the country was first established, only 6 Supreme Court justices were appointed by George Washington. Later, under Abraham Lincoln, the number grew to 10, and in 1869, the number was moved to 9. The idea of court packing comes from the Judicial Procedures Bill of 1937. This was a bill proposed by President at the time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. During this time, the United States was in the midst of the Great Depression. With the Great Depression going on, there was high unemployment, a lack of jobs, scarce ways to get food, and businesses as a whole were hurting. Franklin Delano Roosevelt decided to proposal to pass the New Deal, which granted many ways to look at gaining on new jobs, reestablishing economic support for the country, and helping out in other aspects of the private sector. This idea of court packing was a disaster. Franklin Roosevelt suggested adding 6 Supreme Court justices to the bench, which was viewed as a political pull by Roosevelt to get the passage of the New Deal. At the time, the Supreme Court's justices' pensions were cut, and they were very disgruntled and were basically, in a way, sticking it to Roosevelt by not passing through his bill. At this time, there was bipartisanship against the idea. Even his own Vice President John Garner disapproved of the idea, and it is said that when it came time to vote, he was in the back of the room with shaking his head and pointing a thumb down to telling people to vote against it. Now, over 70 years ago, the idea of court packing was strongly disapproved of and considered very unpopular. Throughout the time since then, it has been constantly and repeatedly said by members of both major political parties that the idea of court packing is a bad idea. But recently, within the year 2020, in an election year, months before the election, the idea of court packing has come up again. There have been many members of the Democratic Party calling for court packing. Specifically, some notable ones are freshman Congress representative from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, and while they have not come out in support or denied support of it, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been linked to possibly supporting a court packing if they achieve the nomination in November. With this comes, why do they all of a sudden want to bring up court packing? In late September, the passing of former Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg brought along a vacant seat to fill. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, decided to appoint Justice Amy Coney Barrett as his pick for the Supreme Court. Along with this came a lot of conflict. President Trump, even though he was fulfilling his constitutional duty as President of the United States, was criticized for trying to fill election seat, the seat within an election year, specifically 60 days before the election. It has come out that in 2016, the GOP controlled Senate blocked the appointment of former President Barack Obama of a candidate, and he has come out and specifically said that he didn't agree with that, and to let Republicans remember that the elections have consequences, and more recently, Republicans have been using that tactic against him. Packing the Supreme Court will bring on dangerous rhetoric. It is important to point out that currently conservative appointed justices hold a majority of 6-3. The idea of court packing is viewed as an abuse of judicial as a view is viewed as an abuse of the judicial branch by the President of the United States, and it is important to point out no matter which party were to succeed in packing the court, it is viewed as a future of political power grabs, which will just result in both parties potentially constantly packing the court, and it will get us nowhere as a country. It is also important to point out that this dangerous rhetoric stems from the idea that many believe that the idea of 9 is right. This is a theory that 9 Supreme Court justices is the perfect number. The idea of it being perfect is because of the fact that it is an odd number, because with it being an odd number, it will result in more rulings and not just standstills like it was in the past with even numbers, with the vote being split down the middle. Now that there is an odd number, it guarantees more rulings and can help progress the country forward. The idea of 9 allows plenty of legal minds on the bench with a proper amount of discussion, without too many where you're not hearing the same argument over and over and over again. This right here is a political cartoon that I thought explained the idea of court packing very well. To the right, the guy with the glasses is portraying Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the people with the packed court across their shirts represent his appointees to the Supreme Court. As you can see, they're all voting yes at the same time unanimously, and you can see the person to the left is confused. Some say that's Uncle Sam, some say that's a Senate leader and whatnot, confused about it, and it's showing that this would be his political power to achieve the passage of the New Deal, which as we know was passed and was very helpful in the recovering of the United States. But as we know in a whole, that the idea of court packing is definitely one that is going to be talked about for years to come and is definitely worth understanding. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I would like to thank you for watching this video, and if you would like to see more content like this, please do subscribe. Thank you very much.